Wow, that's a fancy one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Okay. First of all, I want to say hi to the class that will
Mm.
be watching this and
Mm.
introduce Roger and Ruben. Everyone met Ruben a couple weeks ago or last week. I can't remember now. It was so long ago. And the question I want to talk about, the topic I want to discuss today is what makes for a good ministry and what are the pitfalls if you're starting? So let me ask first, ask you each to kind of introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your ministry experience. Um, what ministries have you been doing and how long?
The Raja go.
Wow. Um, the first ministry, well, I was a member of the ushers ministry for quite a while at St. Stephen's, and I kind of fell away from that. Then I went through Christ Renews His Parish, and um, and that really touched me. And part of that function was to uh, draw those people who went through that program to go into ministries. And that led me to the core team of Christ Renews His Parents, Renews His Parish. And I was involved with that for quite a while. And that was truly a blessing. When that started to fall from the graces of our parish, where we were having a hard time getting people to go for the weekends, I became involved in RCIA. And I've been involved there, I would say probably 10 years. Wouldn't you say, Ruben?
Yes.
And and that was the perfect stepping stone from Christ Renews His Parish right into RCIA. And I really enjoy that, and talking with people about my faith and help them along on their journey too for the Lord. Trying to think any other ministries I'm involved with. My wife is involved with a great deal more ministries than I am, but this keeps me busy. So I'm very happy about that.
All right, Ruben.
So in my case, when I originally came into the church in around 2005 is when I got involved in ministries because before that I attended the Catholic Church, whether it's at St. Stephen's or prior to that in other parishes, and just didn't feel connected to or desire to participate. But when I became a Catholic, one of the things they tell you as part of the mystagogy portion of the process of becoming a Catholic is how do you live this Catholic life after you become a card carrying member? And that means being involved in ministry, some part of parish life. And so in my case, matter of fact, not too long ago, my wife said when I first joined, I was into everything. And the problem was I was into everything and not spending time at home. So it was the men's club, the nights, um, all kinds of other volunteer activities I did in church. And then I also was doing um, homeless ministry on the streets of Tampa with two different groups, um, serving the homeless in Tampa. And so those things were consuming my time, wasn't just during the week, where they were consuming my weekends also. And many of those, sometimes, obviously, my wife and daughter wouldn't be on them. So I was actually being away from home. There was no work-life balance. There was no balance
Right.
between how much ministry I did. And as part of one of those ministries, I worked with a guy who would count heads of how many people he thought he evangelized, that he got them to be interested in Christianity or Catholicism, and he used to keep score. 3 today, 5 today, and you have lots of interactions on the street. You might have 50 interactions with people in various ways, whether or not you're handing them a sandwich or you're doing something or just
Yeah.
talking to them. It's an interaction. Very often you're not being explicitly, are you a Christian? It's how your life doing, what can I do to help you? And that's ministry too. It's not just trying to tell them exactly. Very often the ministries where you do that stuff is the example where you show someone you're a Christian. And it's more than it's often in those situations more important than saying you're a Christian is by being Christian to that person. So anyway, over time, one of the other things I added was the RCIA because I had such a passion now for this faith I had joined that I became an RCIA catechist, and I've been doing RCIA since 2005. And you could think of it as a ministry, you could think of it as some form of evangelization where you're trying to bring others to the faith that you believe in. And that's kind of been over the years, though, I've backed off and put more work-life balance, balance into it, not doing so much that it's all consuming. So now I think I have a better balance than I did when I first became a Catholic.
Let me ask you specifically, you talked about the, measures of success or, contact. Looking at RCIA in particular,
Right.
so that's something we can compare since you both are involved in. What makes it successful from one year to the next? When is it, what do you do? When is it successful? How do you define what a successful RCIA program is? It's what, how many months is it? 3, 4 months?
No, much more than that. Depending on the person's situation, whether they have things in their past, such as divorces, marital
Right.
issues, other things they have to work out. Leaving those aside, generally speaking, a typical process could go from September to Easter, whatever that is. However, we at St. Stephen's tend to do a year-round program. So we would actually be online for what we call inquiry, where it's a free for all. We give them some materials to read topic by topic, but we get online with them once a week in a setting just like this, and we allow them to read the materials beforehand, and basically we come in, discuss those materials that they read, and then we allow them to ask every single question that they would want to ask about Catholicism that we could answer. The point we say, no question is a bad question. No question is off limits. Anything that's on your mind about anything with Catholicism, you ask the question. I usually make jokes that if I can't answer the question, I pay you $5. And I haven't had to pay the $5 yet in about 20 years. So they don't ask me tough questions, or I'm good enough at explaining the faith. But that's it. So now when you think about success in an RCIA program, I'll come to the end what success really means. But remember, we view RCIA as a place where God already touched someone's heart and made them decide to join the RCIA program to learn more about Catholicism. So in essence, God has done most of the work already by even getting them to show up in the room. So once God has done that part, our job, or the way Roger and I think of our job, is how can we explain what we believe in language that balances faith and reason in a simple enough way without complexity that makes them say, aha, that makes sense. I can accept that. Now, the ultimate success of an RCIA program, in my mind, is when the person does become a Catholic, do they get involved in the life of the parish? Do they now become people who participate in ministries like I talk about, or do they just show up for Mass and go home, receive the Eucharist, and that's it? For us, while we don't keep good numbers on this, I think what Roger and I would probably say that we see enough of them involved in ministries, different kinds of ministries, that says, I've been successful, or we've been successful with that person because they now participate in the life of the church. Ultimately, that's what it boils down to, I think. Roger, you want to add something?
That's exactly right. That's one of the things that I really enjoy is when, because we have such a large parish, we have 5 or 6 Sunday masses, and Ruben goes to 7:30, and I sometimes go to 9:30 or 4:30 on Saturday, so we go at different times, And then when you see those people that you brought into the church, that you walked with them, that they're there and they're fully participating in the Mass, receiving the Eucharist, and then you get to talk with them after Mass, and you see them at the various ministries, because we do have so many ministries at our church. And it's so good to see them, going forward and expressing that faith and doing what God has told them to do. That is very rewarding.
And what contributes to that? What we, if, as you're trying, because every year I hear you guys talking about making it better and doing this and doing that. What contributes to success? How do you, what do you do to try to get people involved? Because it's obviously the Holy Spirit has a big piece of that, but what
Right.
do you do about it?
Oh, okay, the simple things we do is like our Rosie, our director of religious education, she would actually bring. We have one Sunday session dedicated to these kinds of things. What are all the ministries in the parish, and how could they get involved? So there's a plethora of ministries, and they get to see what they all are, and we give them snippets of descriptions of what the ministries are. One of the things when I do the talk on that stuff, one of the things I do is I tell them ample different ministries. Don't worry about if the one you joined today is not the right fit for you. Give it a try. It's okay to try multiple ministries and find something that you gravitate to, or even change over time. So that's one way that we think that is a success to that. But the other is just the people who are in the room. Like example, Kit, Roger's wife, is very articulate about talking about her own experience as someone who went from not being participating in ministry to participating in ministry and the joy that that does. And sometimes we encourage them to come and join us on something and see if they like it. No pressure, no pressure to stay with it. Just come and see. And it's that come and see attitude that I think is non-threatening, no pressure, that would make them try it. And very often they find something they end up liking. Roger, what do you think? What else would you add to that?
And getting to know them in the RCI process, we strongly encourage them to always speak what their mind and what their heart are saying, because a lot of times people are afraid to speak up, especially amongst people they don't know. And I always stress upon the fact that this is their first small Christian community that they're going through right now with RCIA. And then eventually you can, as you get to know everybody else within that group, then you can start branching out after you become Catholic to join other ministries, and you'll meet more and more of the people in the parish. And once you do that, it is truly a community where you get to know, where you get to say hello to someone by their name, not just by a person that you sit next to every Sunday in Mass and never get to know their name. So we always encourage them to, speak up, get to know each other, and don't be afraid, because everybody is afraid at first. And as soon as you start talking with others, it's the same way with praying. The way to get to know God is praying and then to listen. And it's the same way with the people within the community, is to talk to them and to listen.
And what do you, other than just encouraging them to be open, how do you get that sense of community, that sense of openness? Because that I think is really important to make these things work. What do you do to encourage that? It's just repetition?
Sometimes it's a lot tougher. Last year it was really tough, wasn't it? Many of the people that came through the program, they didn't say a word, and we didn't know if they were getting it. And then this year you see them and you talk to them and they're all excited. They're still on fire. There's one lady in particular, she went through probably about 3 or 4 years ago. She went to work with my wife as a nurse at Tampa General. And my wife was always after, Nikki, you got to find a church and you have to go to church and get a faith life. And one day she did come to our church and she sat in every single RCI class. This girl is a real smart girl. She became it's after an RN. It's a physician
Nurse practitioner or something.
Yeah, nurse
physician assistant,
practitioner, I
one
think
of
it
those.
is. But she's very, very smart. She never said one single word in our class, not a single word. But that girl was so on fire, it was unbelievable. And she got her kids to go to the Catholic school, and whenever they have questions, they answer them in the Catholic faith. To make them grow stronger in the Catholic faith, something that she didn't have when she was growing up. So, and I see the boys all the time at the fish fries during Lent. The boys are there. They always come over and say hello to us, and we have a good time talking. So that's what God always works in his ways, and you would have never thought Nikki would be speaking so much and be so on fire because she never said a word.
But yeah, the thing we do though, we speak to them, we remind them multiple times, and when you get close to the end, you start encouraging them. We start saying words to them such as, you have to live the Catholic life now. To live the Catholic life, you have to be involved in the community. So to the extent we could encourage them that way, we do that. And it's repetition, right? You have to tell them. But one of the things you find, what my experience is, if their sponsor, the person that's moving along with them through this process, is embedded in the church and doing ministry, and the person speaks to them, they have probably more clout than Roger and I do, just as catechists.
So how does the sponsor weigh in? Because I know you have a hard time finding them sometimes.
Mhm.
How do you get the sponsors to weigh in? How
Well,
do you get them to participate? I guess the other question.
well, the thing is, like if you take Roger's wife, Kit, as a sponsor, and she's done sponsoring almost every year, she ends up sponsoring someone who needs a sponsor. Kit is the most eloquent woman when it comes to talking about what she does in the church and how she's involved with the nursing, what she does with the ministry on the St. Vincent de Paul. And that's in essence just by explaining what she does, how much joy she gets from it, how much friendships she's built through that. That's the way to that I think Kit has been successful at that. And I think we all going to are successful at that to the extent we share what it means to us.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. And as I listen to you guys, I really get the impression that obviously the Holy Spirit has a lot to do with it. But you're there working with it. You're
Yes.
present. You're showing them you're there, and I think that's probably what's making the difference. Just the consistency of going in every time.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right. Well,
Okay, I think that was an interesting interview. I got a couple things out of this that I'd like to summarize. For me, as I go through this course, I've stopped some of my ministries to focus on this. Actually stopped everything. And I keep thinking about what I'm going to do next time to make it better, to be more effective, to be a better evangelist and to help my community better. And that was kind of the general direction of the questions. What works, what doesn't work, and what does it mean to work? And I think this interview helped me quite a bit, because one of the measures of success, I think, is to the extent that your ministry goes beyond itself to help the church. Uh, Roger and Ruben there were telling us about how their measure of success, and I'm sure they're not taking any metrics, but their measure of success is seeing the new Catholics get involved with other ministries, really being involved, being dynamic Catholics, to use Matthew Kelly's terms. I think that's a wonderful goal, and I'm certainly going to encourage it in future ministries. The other thing, and I've heard, I think it was Sister um, Emily Mary talk in her interview, mentioned the idea of building community. That's hard to do sometimes in ministry. Depends the type of ministry, the age groups, and so forth. But community is fundamental to us, to our faith. We're not a go it alone faith. We definitely believe in unity. That's the main reds of the Mass, and it's something that should be part of all of our ministries. And then for me, finally, something I've been thinking about a long time, I want to resume some type of Bible studies. I really want to emphasize the Mass. That's my personal goal. My rationale is that this is where we get most of our interface with our faith. And if a Bible study can emphasize the Mass and show the depth, the beauty, the meaning of the Mass, that would be a great goal. So overall, from my perspective, this is a lot about community, commitment to the community, and growing the Mass. Thank you.